So, welcome everyone to a podcast, Simon Says, Let's Talk. This is generally about men's health and how we can improve men's health. And also it's about using comedy on prescription and also other art forms to make people healthier. So we've got a bit of a mental health crisis in this country, particularly with men. The commonest cause of death under 50 in men is suicide. And also the other fact that I find very alarming is that 9 million people in England alone are on antidepressants. So we've got a bit of a crisis. We need to do something different about it, and we need to talk about men's health. So I'm absolutely delighted. We've got Andy Burnham with me, and also, well, I don't think he needs much introduction, but also Lou Jackson, who's Craig Health, and she is really the inventor of comedy on prescription. So what I wanted to really talk to you about initially was, I know that you in Manchester, you've been using sort of creative things to help people with mental health problems. And I was interested in sort of what stuff you were doing there, really.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, Simon. I think this is the conversation, isn't it? Life's hard for people, and you've got to just think now about how do we change the way we support people. So in Manchester, to answer your question, we've developed a whole live well approach,
Right.
which is about social intervention every single day to lift people and help people and take a bit of pressure off people's shoulders.
Right.
So that's what we're doing. And culture, sport, the arts, comedy, all part of it. So hopefully it points the way to a better way of doing things.
That's fantastic. And Lou, do you want to just say a little bit about comedy on prescription? Because it's quite a new idea, isn't it, really?
Yeah, so it came about, I am a tech founder, and actually comedy is not an art form with arts councils. There's no one from the in comedy on the Creative Industry Council, and comedy is not integrated into the NHS. So actually I contacted Simon in his remit as a GP of over 30 years. Simon's one of the pioneers of social prescribing, and the UK is the world leader in social prescribing, creative health. So actually it's like, well, as a GP or a future MP, is there any way you could help to get comedy integrated into the NHS? And so we are quite far along. We did a pilot series last year where we've seen a 44% uplift in mood, and they were single one-off events. So we've just started a second pilot series, and there's some taking place in Westminster, Bromley, Gloucestershire. We're only getting scrappy bits of funding, but what we're seeing is a definite improvement in people's well-being, but importantly, confidence.
Yeah.
And so, so much of what's going on, in the UK, in England, there's a 300 billion cost to English society for mental ill health. And is that going to get worse in an AI accelerated era? And if you look at NEET youth, and there's almost 1 million people who are not in employment, education, or training. So what's really exciting about comedy, as specifically compared to other creative health, it can help make people feel more confident. It can help them get a job, keep a job, ask someone out on a date. There's so many benefits to it, and not only the practice of doing comedy on prescription, things like laughter therapy or comedy workshops, or even seeing stand-up in your own language. But actually, it's like the chemical benefits of laughing to your brain. So
That's really good. But in terms of sort of men's mental health specifically, why? I mean, it's interesting, isn't it? Because obviously a lot of things impact on men's mental health, like employment and wealth and that sort of thing. But we do seem to see a bit of a crisis. So I just wondered how you saw that, Andy.
I think life's just got harder, Simon, over the years, hasn't it? Employment has got more precarious. The pressures people are dealing with have just sort of, I don't know, the weight has got heavier, hasn't it, over the years. And I've seen the growth of support groups. Andy's Man Club is one example.
That's not yours, is it?
It's not mine, actually, although I'd be very proud if it was, because they do a brilliant thing. Yeah. And we lost a firefighter to suicide, and his family set up the Jamie Horrocks Trust. And I went down to one of their sessions, and there's a lot of comedy in it, actually. These are just obviously men of a certain age supporting each other. Some in suits, some in high-vis, some in tracksuits. They just walk in, and I've only done it once, but it was such a moving experience. And there's lots of laughter, actually, but they were just having a conversation with each other that they'd never have at home, probably, never have at work, because some of them would fear admitting anything, if you like, in the workplace, and probably wouldn't in front of their GP. And it just has come over to me over the years, and obviously was the health secretary at one point. I think we've got to think differently, and you're definitely doing that, Lou. How do you just help people help each other and support people differently?
Yeah.
And I think the times we're living in demand that, and in many ways the podcast is speaking directly to that.
Well, that's true, and I think, one of the things with men and boys or young men anyway, is a sort of socialisation, maybe forced on them by screens or the internet age. And I just wonder, there's talk of actually banning social media under 16. I'm not sure whether that's, I don't know what you think of that, but certainly screens are seeming to isolate us, really.
I'm if I'm honest with you, getting more to that space, just because I think we probably all know it ourselves. You can sometimes feel your mood lower when you're on social media for a prolonged period of time.
True.
And if you think about that from a young person's perspective, with all these things that worry, because you worry more when you're younger anyway, don't you?
Yeah.
And it kind of adds to the sense of doom that maybe people are carrying around. So I do feel, and bear in mind, I was in politics before social media, and I've been in,
Yeah, well, that's interesting. So what sort of effect do you think?
Oh, it was like, so I was in Parliament 16 years, and I pretty much had 8 pre-social media, 8 PSM, and then 8 after social media. And it was like, if you compare it to like a sport analogy, I often use sport analogies, it was like playing croquet for the first 8 years, because it was very polite and it was all, but it was a more genteel
game, croquet.
And then it was like at half time, all of a sudden it was UFC, you know what I mean?
Oh, was it?
Yeah, it was like that. The kind of sense of, contact sport, really intensified when social media arrived. And I personally don't feel that's been for the better at all, really. No. There are good things about social media, don't get me wrong, but I do feel the negatives outweigh the positives, particularly where young people are concerned.
And I suppose the other thing, that's something we've been talking about with other people on the podcast, is the effect of the sort of manosphere and those sort of role models for younger men, and whether that's increasing misogyny and that sort of thing. I just wondered what you thought about that, really.
Yeah, well, there is that, and that's a real worry, isn't it? When I came in as mayor, you mentioned suicide before, Simon. The team in Greater Manchester, who are quite radical when it comes to public health, they put to me that we should launch a Shining a Light on Suicide campaign. And for me at the time, it was a bit, I was like, ooh, is that a bit too much? And they were saying, no, that's the point. You've got to take this conversation to a different level now, given, the what we're seeing, the change. And they persuaded me. And interestingly, once we'd launched it, the League Managers Association got in touch and said, oh, interesting, and is there a partnership we can do with this? So we've really developed a strong partnership with them. And the managers are really good role models, I think, because they're dealing with men's mental health in a very closed environment in terms of the club and the changing room and all the rest of it. And Sam Allardyce became a really big advocate of what we were doing, and he used to describe some of the techniques he used to manage men's mental health in the workplace. Something as simple as this: every day at the training ground, he'd ask all the players coming through to put a number on a piece of paper, 1 to 10, as to how they were feeling, their mood. And he'd then collect them in and watch the numbers as they...
We do that in comedy and description. Yeah, so actually we're working with the NHS in Gloucestershire, and they have this process where you do a check-in word and a check-out word.
Oh, yeah.
And to see sort of how people, they shift, and actually it's very effective for people,
simple,
for younger
isn't it?
people. Yeah, it is.
And I wonder whether we should do that more, really, just in terms of openness about these things.
Yeah. Who would have thought Sam Allardyce? Fantastic mental health practitioner.
Yes, indeed. But credit. He did that, and he was saying that that experience, you were kind of watching players, are they up, are they down, and in the end, that's how he developed those techniques, and it then took him to what he was doing to support the campaign, because there sadly have been high-profile suicides.
Well, it's interesting you mentioned football, because one of our podcasts and this series...
I always mention football.
Oh, do you? Well, we got Robbie Savage on.
Yes, I know Robbie.
And Robbie, and he's really quite frank about his own mental health, and it was quite refreshing. But really, it comes down to role models, I think, there. So if you get decent role models like Sam, maybe, and like Robbie, who are willing to talk about their mental health, it seems as though that might be halfway there. I remember, this is before the time you were in Parliament, but I can remember the debate. It would have been around 2014, 15, when
mental health was getting a higher profile within Parliament. It had barely got a mention really for, here and there, but it was just kind of becoming more and more of a topic for debate. I remember being in the chamber where two MPs, a Conservative MP and a Labour MP, in the first time in the British Parliament, they said they had had mental health problems. Right. And it was a really sort of, kind of moment. You felt it in the chamber.
Shudder,
a real thing, because when would a British politician ever admit
when
to
was
what?
that? Do you remember?
It was around 2015. I'd have to go back and look it up.
So only really a decade on.
Only a decade on. But I look back at that moment as a massive change moment for men's mental health. In the ultimate workplace in the country, two people stood up and had the courage to say, well, you know what, I've had these challenges. And it was a topic of debate for a few days afterwards. And I look back at it as a really big moment on this journey that we're on. But that kind of sense of openness in the workplace, we're all struggling in a more challenging world. So let's just talk about it more.
Yeah, no, I think that's right. And I do know that part of the men's health strategy, which we've launched as a government, as you well know, is about using the Premier League as well to say, let's talk about things. And I think that encouragement for men to talk. I mean, Lou, how do you find men? Do you think they're emotionally...
How do I find men?
Yeah.
How many minutes do we have?
Oh, no, I think we better leave it there.
Yeah, sorry.
Are we talking Australian men or no? Sorry, what was your question?
No. I just want, how do you find, are men getting more emotionally literate, do you think, or?
That's a complex question, and there's a complex answer. What I would say, I quite like, I think it was, there's a term I like, instead of mental health, mental fitness, I think is quite a good one for men in particular, because I think there's still this, with guys, it's still this thing, I need to man up and I can't be vulnerable, and talking about my mental health is weakness rather than strength. Yeah. And actually what's great about the UK, I think Prince William and Prince Harry, they did a great job on talking about their own mental health and what they've been through, which has been, it gives me goosebumps. They've just gone through so much. And I think that's great that they led from the front and they still are talking about it. It wasn't a trendy thing to do. They're serious about it. So I think if, in particular for men, I mean, the reason that, we launched this series is I'm keen to see, we hear so much talk about what's toxic and what's wrong with men and all the negativity around men. And that's from the fact that you've got 96% of people that are incarcerated in the UK are men, all the way through to suicide, or they're double as likely to harm themselves with alcohol and other addictions. But I think the reason we've launched this is let's interview the positive men. Let's get more positive men in front of the camera. And for anyone who's listening at home, you've got a voice. Stand up. We want to hear more from and.
It's not all about Andrew Tate, is it, or whatever? There's some much better role models. And,
100%. Like yesterday we had, so with this series that we're doing, we've interviewed Tom Walker, who's Jonathan Pye, Tom Finlay from Groove Armada, Robbie Savage, as you said, and also Dr. Phil Hammond. And we've got all these other people lined up as well. And it's let's put spotlight on them and their stories and all the incredible things that they're doing. If we, so in terms of your question, I think I like to look at it as mental fitness, and I like to look at it as, what positive things can we offer? And this podcast series is a part of that.
Yeah, no, you speak really well and powerfully. I just think it's about a conversation we just got to keep having, and it's why I wanted to support you, Simon. And it's just got to be a kind of everyday topic of conversation, hasn't it? And I think the more it is like that, the better. I've been another football connection, but it often is a good connection when we're trying to open the door to these things. Yeah. Trevor Stephen used to play for Everton, then England. He's launched something called Mindflow. It's in the northwest at the moment. So the mayor of Liverpool, my good friend Steve Rotherham, is a former bricklayer. Myself, we're supporting Trevor because if you think about the football environment being a punishing one at times, construction can be where some of these issues are very male-dominated. And do you know, there's 2 suicides per day from construction workers. I don't know if you know that. Yeah, it's a shocking thing, really. And it's about going to the places where the conversation really needs to happen, where everyone's maybe putting that man up, brave face on and all of that. But that's in those places the problems can actually be more hidden and actually more serious. So these things are, I think they're just kind of springing up, aren't they, everywhere? And it's about connecting them and supporting them.
Yeah. And you've mentioned a couple already, and there are loads of fantastic groups, even in Stroud area as well. There's fantastic man clubs, and also there's like walking football. If you're over 70 or sometimes under 70. But I played some of that, and it was fantastic. Actually, I did get a goal actually, but what was awful is that if you're stuck up front, you can't run back and defend. But it was there was about.
You're not tempted to break into a run.
Well, and then you get then you get called out.
Yeah.
You were running, but these were men who were. What was important about this, and I think that's what's good about football and comedy and the arts, is that it's not really about the football end. It's about they all had a cup of tea.
It's about connecting. That's what it is. It's about disconnecting. So when you're in a comedy club, you cannot be on your mobile phone. It's not like
you're
a music
in the moment.
gig.
You're living
You're
in the moment.
When you're playing football, you can't be on your mobile phone.
That's a really
unless you're
point.
influencer.
And this was the walking football was a Monday morning, and there was like 40 old blokes out there.
I have a really strong feeling about this, and it goes back to my days as health secretary, because I did have a responsibility for these things once upon a time. The kind of issue for me is physical activity has two benefits, or many benefits actually, but there's two in particular. The mindfulness side of it. You're just there, you're just doing the thing in the moment, playing football. But it's then that social connection side of it as well. There is a collective activity. And I used to say to the Department of Health in the old days that we've missold physical activity. It's always been sold about physical activity for physical health. Oh, it'll improve your heart this, or your blood pressure that. It's all fine, but the main thing that you get from physical activity is an instant improvement in your mood and how you feel. And I feel we should focus on physical activity for mental health. It should be a day, whatever you can do. It doesn't matter if people can only do a bit. It's still, and if you can do that in a collective context, I think that has huge benefits for men's mental health. And I kind of feel that we need to sort of rethink. This is what Live Well is about, actually. Rethinking it, making it an everyday thing, and lift people.
Well, as you probably might have seen, Angela Rippon is a great dance fanatic.
I saw in the house. I never got invited to dance.
I know. Well, you were lucky because we all got slated for it.
I know you did.
But on the other hand, there's something about that, and what was interesting about that, both of them we got a bit sweaty, which is good in that way. But also, it's very difficult to dance and not smile. I think that's what I realised, and it's the same with football or any activity. And I think it's quite important to people that don't like sport that we give them a different ways of getting fit, isn't it?
It's possible to dance and cringe inside, is it not? Because I did
only if it's
a
dad
strictly
dancing.
Well, I did a strictly for the very great, sadly late Rob Burrow. And for him, I would do it, but I will never do anything like that again.
You're not doing that.
Yeah.
I was going to ask you actually, and both of you on this one is okay. How do you keep yourself both mentally and physically fit? We all get stressed. You must have an incredibly stressful job at the moment. I was there at the Labour Party conference. You had hounded by photographers. So I just wondered how you dealt with that, Andy. Actually,
I run.
Do you?
Yeah, I do, and I actually do it alone. But in some ways, that's good because there's a lot of people interactions all week, and I go 3 times during the week, Monday to Friday. And I know it sounds easy just to say this, and sometimes it's hard, but I get myself out. But then I have longer runs at the weekend, and the longer ones are the ones where I think I really get a benefit from, because your brain just goes into a slightly different mode, goes into sort of neutral, and you just then, things just sort of flow a bit through you a bit differently.
Interesting, I think there's a psychological concept called flow. And it's often when you're doing creative stuff, but also running repeatedly without thinking.
I think I know what that is, because I think I
you
know
get
it
that, do you?
sort of 40 minutes into it.
You do seem a very sort of calm person. How about you, Lou?
What's interesting, I think you need a toolbox, and I think that you use different things for different times. But always, every day, exercising is non-negotiable. I think.
Do you exercise every single day?
Yes. Yeah. Having said that, when you've got days like today where you're like in different studios and things, it can be. But exercise, also eating well. Like I eat incredibly well. I pretty much eat all organic. I don't really eat out a lot. Also looking at how much alcohol you're drinking, other things. So it's like looking at.
I'm good on the physical activity, but less good on the eating and drinking side.
There's an amazing book I wanted to bring up to you both. It's called Atomic Habits by James Clear, and there's this brilliant quote in it, and it is You don't rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your systems. So I think that's a really important thing for people to think about with their health, mental and physical. What are the systems that you have in place?
Yeah.
You know, are you sitting on the couch with your hand in a pack of crisps, you know, going to your mouth and then doom strolling? You're not going to feel good about that. And you're not the problem, it's the systems that you've got in place. So
it's how do you help
I always
people?
think about that. What's my system?
Yeah.
Why am I feeling like this? And it's like, well, what's the system I had in place for the last week or 3 weeks?
So I need your advice here, really, because you know I do go
I'm
out.
not the doctor, but you have got a doctor on the panel if you...
I get my I do get myself out a few times a week.
Yeah.
But there are mornings when it's just hard to get from that, you know, that you stall away and you think, oh, and then just getting out is the hard bit, isn't it? And how do you...
I'm not a morning person, so let's be honest. But I'll just factor it in, like the days leading up to it. It's like what's happening on every day.
Yeah.
So I just try and
program
make sure,
it in and make sure it's there.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
And even if it's like gets to the end of the day, I'm told, but Simon, you're the doctor, so tell me if I'm wrong. Once you eat, if you try and exercise within half an hour of that, even if it's just walking around a couple of the blocks, it's actually really good for you. Oh, yeah. So even if you only go around a couple of blocks around your street.
They say that your glycogen gets stored in your muscles, whether that's
is that
true
what it
or
is?
not.
Okay.
But I mean, there's people that spend their whole life studying this. But no, it's a really interesting conversation. I just wondered also, though, in men's health, you mentioned it before, Lou, about the so-called NEATs, not in education and training. What could we do about that, Andy? What do you think? What do you think the solution is there?
Well, again, I hate to say that we've got a solution for everyone. You know, here's one I made earlier, but again, in Manchester, we've brought some new thinking through here. And to me, it's fairly simple. We need an equal alternative to the university route. Right. I was in Parliament when Michael Gove was Education Secretary. I was Shadow Education Secretary. And I remember saying to him in Parliament that he was creating an education system for some children in some schools, not all children in all schools. And I go back to that because the heavy focus on the academic route, and it goes back to what Tony Blair did with the 50% target. Yeah. I just think we've not had an education system built for 50% of kids, possibly more than 50% of kids, because maybe that target wasn't right anyway.
And that impacts more on boys or men.
Massively, you know. So you know, I talk about sport a lot, as you can tell, but I go back to my school days, and there was a period in my kind of upbringing where I've come from a really stable home and everything, really supported, but I was trying to be in with the in crowd and not doing so well anymore in my academic. You know, I was in a bit of that borderline thing. Yeah. And I can remember the days when I went to school with my boots in my bag it was a different feeling that day. Right. And if you crowd sport out of school with all the other academic stuff, you really do down, I think, some young people who why should they be denied their moment to shine in front of everybody else? Yeah. You know, where it's all about the academic. Then they feel, oh, well, I'm not as good. And there's so many kids in a place like Greater Manchester. The day they've got their boots in their bag is the day they've got hope in their heart. And yet the school system, I think, has denied that too much. But it could be music, it could be drama, it could be anything of the same. And I just feel, when you say, what do we do about needs? Build a school system that prioritises those things, because they're about employability, but also you have a technical route that's equal to the academic route. And we're building that in Greater Manchester right now. And what we're trying to do at 14, we've got this tool that allows them to see the real-time jobs in Greater Manchester. Let them see the jobs that are out there and then start working our way towards them. I think we've really failed young people who want more sport and arts, more technical pathways. That's the answer from my point of view.
No, and I think that does drive them into that sort of manosphere world and that sort of thing, because it does isolate them because they can't get a job and that sort of thing. Sorry, Lou.
I was just going to say on that, I think as well, to anyone listening, because I have 16 nephews and nieces, and there's a lot of concern from their part. What do we do? Like, what's the point in trying school? We're not going to have a job. What's the point in going to university? We're not going to have a job. Actually, we're moving towards a human-led, embodied experience world. So actually, doing things like football, like people are going to still want to go to live entertainment and going to comedy clubs and doing things like becoming comedy on prescription providers or other creative health workers. You do not need to be a go to university to become a creative health practitioner, provider. And what that means is you just need to have some training in safeguarding, trauma response, mental health first aid, and then be able to go do something. And that's something that you might do. It might be poetry, or it might be drama, or it might be comedy. It could be football on prescription. So I think it's really important to be really curious and keep trying things for people who are in need. And don't give up and just think, oh, there's going to be nothing for me in the future, because
absolutely right.
there's always a better day.
I'm aware that Andy, as always, you're short of time, and you've been so generous with your time, and thank you, both of you. But Lou, you wanted to ask us a question, didn't you?
I do, actually.
This is the bit I'm worried about.
I'm very worried, Simon.
Listeners. Okay, so we talked about check-in and check-out words before. Actually, I'd like to know how you're going, because it's an insane time globally in politics. So how are you both doing with your own mental health, and how are from all sides of government, how are people doing? What's your check-in and check-out word for today?
Oh, tricky. I'll try and go first. I mean, I'm new to this game, really. I've been a GP all my life, but I think you've got to have friends, actually. That's the main thing that keeps you going. And I feel like I've got a good team. And also, I find it's much easier if I just say what I think in the end. Because if I try and not say what I think, I get into all sorts of squirms and tangles. But
I do the same. It doesn't always work brilliantly in politics when you say what you think.
I know.
But I do agree with you. I think politics would be better if we changed it a bit and let people... there's the funny thing, isn't there? We've got this political culture where everyone has to sort of stick to the line to take, and social media that demands the opposite. It demands authenticity, So it's hard at times, isn't it? The sort of straitjacket of politics.
Because on the topic of systems with schooling, that you're probably saying that the political system is obviously changing.
It's a bit toxic, isn't it?
Because, I don't think people can be who they are without sometimes getting in trouble with, the party or something else. When actually, it would connect more if they were like that. But no, it is. Politics comes and goes, doesn't it? I remember the last Labour government; it was challenging, and I very much know what it feels like, Simon. But these things come and go, don't they? And I think all things pass, don't they? And all things go on to a different phase. I like to think that we're living through a turbulent period, but in time, things will we'll learn from it and we'll come through it. So check-in word, you mean what did I feel when I walked in the door today?
Yeah,
or...
if you think about you waking up this morning, what's the check-in word and where are you at now?
Yeah, okay. I was like, when I woke up this morning, always a day in London, it was like, it's going to be a full-on day.
Yeah.
So,
Stress?
A little.
Anxious,
yeah, but just conscious of a lot of getting around and
Well, I'm aware. I'm going to interview Andy Burnham. I'm not saying that I wasn't a bit nervous, but from that, you feel better afterwards. And I think one of the things that I've learned from all these podcasts is that a bit of anxiety is okay, because it sort of makes us perform better.
True.
And we shouldn't pathologicalise that. We shouldn't medicalise that. It's just when it gets over the top. And I suppose, and I think what you've been saying really is that you've got a good stable sort of background, supportive background, and you do exercise, and that keeps you together. Really.
Yeah, I feel like I felt actually quite upbeat this morning actually because it was good to come back and go around parts of London where I used to live. So my checkout word is lifted, because the conversation with you both has lifted me, because I think these are the things that matter, aren't they? Kind of people being true to themselves, having open conversations with each other, the connection that we all need. This is what it's all about.
Well, look, Andy, can I thank you? I know how busy you are, and you've been
absolutely
fantastic.
I do have one last question.
I don't.
I thought last year something like, obviously I work in comedy, and people would think the comedy industry is like the most offers the most amount of joy, but I did think Oasis last year probably won the crown for being offering the most joy to the joy that came through what they were doing.
It was like that.
So my question is, if you've got to choose, both of you got to answer, Who's funnier, Noel or Liam?
I could go Noel, I think.
I possibly. Well, I don't know. Have you seen Liam on Twitter? Liam's X game is quite.
He lives near Stroud, actually.
Yeah.
Well, so he did do. I don't know.
Yeah, I think they're both. They've got the Irish, haven't they? They've got the Irish in them, and we're.
So you're 50-50.
Yeah. I'm going to be
Mayor
doing
of Manchester 50-50.
Yeah, but you're so right. You know, the great thing about Oasis, particularly at Heaton Park, it was lovely weather like it is today outside, but it's because my generation, who inflicted Oasis on the school run to our kids, were there with our kids together. So it was a very
It gives me goosebumps thinking about it.
It was a very intergenerational thing, and it was a joyous thing because people thought, well, we never nearly. We could have not had this moment.
Yeah.
So everyone just came in that mood, really. And
it was
just
so
determined.
good for Britain and so
Really?
good for people, I think, across the world.
Yeah.
Because I think at the moment in politics as well, we're being drawn into other countries' stuff.
I'm gonna let you into a secret here, but now this is proper name dropping. Noel texted me to say that afterwards because we'd worked with him just to make sure it was all right. But he said he was like saying that it feels like. That was like a moment of the country at its best, and I think it was. It was all of the best values of the city. People would say intergenerational, positive. There was no trouble. There was barely any. I know that.
But everywhere they went, I saw them in Sydney, and so the whole of Australia Stadium was like absolutely bouncing up and down like this. And I think also looking back in history, the nostalgia of it, and people that want to go back to a time when they felt a bit happier. But
I'm going to have to stop you.
No, it's a good question to end on.
And
they gave the nation a lift, didn't they, for sure?
Yeah, and it shows that culture and stuff is so important for things. So anyway, look, I'm going to have to leave that. A few little thank yous, and so first of all, Stephen Kinsella for funding it through through his foundation, Brimscombe Mill for filming and producing, NHS Gloucestershire that have been part of our partnership. Yeah, obviously our two guests who have been absolutely fantastic, Andy and Lou, and Jenny Bowles for the backdrop, Emmeline, who's our cameraman, and also my fantastic team, Sufyan and Tim. So, look, thank you very much. And well
done to you as well for making it happen.
Thank you very much, Andy. Cheers.
Right. Thank you.
Nice to meet you, Lou.
Thank you so much.